Hey Optimancers, Chris here. I'm covering the entire Playtest 8 Barbarian in this video, along with the Path of the World tree, but in the second half of this video, I am just talking about Brutal Strike and a couple parts of it that have me confused. So if you read the video title and that's what you're interested in, feel free to skip ahead, I've timestamped it. So if we compare the Playtest 8 Barbarian with the Playtest 7 one, a lot of changes have just carried over as they were. So Reckless Attack, the new Primal Knowledge feature, Instinctive Pounce, and Weapon Mastery, they're all still here just as they were in Playtest 7. So I'm not going to go over them again. I'll just repeat that I liked all those changes and thought it really made the Barbarian more appealing. I just figured that I didn't see enough benefits gained at higher levels to stay a straight class Barbarian into the double-digit levels. There's a couple of minor changes beyond the big one, so I'll start with those. With the capstone, one of the issues in Playtest 7 was the Barbarian gets a +4 to Strength and Constitution, but their maximum for the abilities became a 24. But with the ability to get a 22 at level 19 with ability score increase at that level, it meant a Barbarian's maximum for those scores at level 20 needs to be 26. So that's been corrected in Playtest 8, though they didn't mention it in the design notes. And it's not a surprising change, it's really just a correction, but it's nice to see. The next minor change is Rage. So all the improvements to Rage we saw in previous playtests, like the ability to extend Rage up to 10 minutes, the ability to keep raging as a bonus action without attacking or taking damage, and applying the damage bonus to both melee attacks and thrown melee weapons is all still here. But they've added regaining a rage use with a short rest. I will say I haven't found running out of rages to be nearly the problem it can be using the 2014 rules, using the playtest rules, because the extended duration and the ability to maintain it outside of combat really do a lot of heavy lifting. But there's still a certain anxiety you have with rages, because with a Barbarian, you are really relying on this feature. Not just for the benefits of Rage itself, but because your subclass features, definitely your level 3 subclass feature, and sometimes the higher level features as well, rely on you raging. So providing a short rest recovery I think is a great idea. Also, they recently talked about making an effort to make sure every class has some kind of benefit to a short rest beyond just expending hit dice. And this is kind of the obvious way to do that with the Barbarian. I'm actually curious to see what happens with the 2024 Player's Handbook if they go back to some of the classes that we aren't going to see in playtests anymore and add short rest recovery features. Like the Rogue currently doesn't have any features to really recover on a short rest, so there's nothing obvious there for short rest benefits like rages for Barbarians. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. The next minor change is to Persistent Rage at level 15. So in Playtest 7, Persistent Rage allowed the Barbarian to gain 1 use of Rage if they rolled initiative without any uses remaining. And your Rage extended for the full 10 minutes without any requirements beyond becoming unconscious or donning heavy armor. Now it's interesting here that the Playtest 8 design notes say the unconscious condition, not the incapacitated condition, shuts off your Rage, like that's some kind of new thing. But I just showed you the Playtest 7 version and it wasn't shut off for being incapacitated. Here it is again, unconscious. So I don't know what the design notes are referring to here. So here's Persistent Rage in Playtest 8. When you roll initiative, you can regain all your uses of Rage, but only once per long rest. And just like Playtest 7, Rage is extended for the full 10 minutes unless you fall unconscious or don heavy armor. Now I don't know whether to call this a buff or not over Playtest 7. Because, with the Playtest 7 rules, that's a 100% guarantee you will never start a combat without at least 1 rage. But then again, what if you do fall unconscious? You could need more than 1 rage. Also, maybe you need a rage when it's not combat to use Primal Savagery or something like that. So there's some benefits here for sure, even if rage isn't a theoretically unlimited pool. Though in the end, it probably doesn't matter that much. 99% of the time anyways. With rage lasting as long as it does, as well as now regaining a use after a short rest, I have to think a Barbarian probably isn't running out of rages at level 14 before they get this feature. You have 5 rages at this point to start with, so I just don't see running out of rages to be a real problem at this point. So, a minor change. The only other change is Brutal Critical switching to Brutal Strike, and this is the major topic. so I will be coming back to it after we look at Path of the World Tree. Let's take a look at this great subclass. This leans into the theme of the World Tree, a feature in many historical mythologies, often referring to a literal, physical giant sacred tree that has roots connecting all places and planes of existence. I have said after Playtest 7 that I liked the idea of the subclass and I appreciated getting new subclass options and new material, but the features needed some work. Well, they got the work, and this subclass looks good to print as far as I'm concerned. Let's go through the features. Level 3, Vitality of the Tree. Your rage taps into the life force of the World Tree. You gain the following benefits. Vitality Surge. When you activate your rage, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your Barbarian level. And Life-Giving Force. At the start of each of your turns while your rage is active, you can choose another creature within 10 feet of yourself to gain temporary hit points. To determine the number of temporary hit points, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus, then you add them together, and if any of these temporary hit points remain when your rage ends, they vanish. So Life-Giving Force is the same as Playtest 7, and it is a really nice teamwork feature. Since rage can extend beyond combat and potentially into multiple combats, the Wild Tree Barbarian can also top up temporary hit points between combats as long as they don't end their rage in between. It's very nice, but the big improvement here is Vitality Surge. In Playtest 7, the Wild Tree Barbarian recovered hit points equal to their Barbarian level, which is pretty useless if you don't need healing. And you can't provide temporary hit points to yourself with Life-Giving Force, so this added very little to the resiliency of the World Tree Barbarian. But since Vitality Surge now adds temporary hit points, this becomes a solid defensive feature for your Wild Tree Barbarian as well as for your allies. Really nice feature, scales with your level as well. Level 6, Branches of the Tree. While your rage is active, whenever a creature you can see starts its turn within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to summon spectral branches of the World Tree around it. The target must succeed on a strength saving throw with your standard DC based on strength, or be teleported to an unoccupied space you can see within 5 feet of yourself, or in the nearest unoccupied space you can see. The space the target teleports to must be on a surface or liquid that can support it, otherwise the target doesn't teleport. After the target teleports, you can reduce its speed to 0 until the end of its current turn. Okay, so the improvement here over the Playtest 7 version is huge. I mean, massive. The range of branches of the tree in Playtest 7 was 20 feet, now it's 30 feet, but that is not the big improvement. It used to be that you use this feature when a creature ended its turn, and now you use it when it starts its turn, and you reduce its speed to 0 for the turn, if you want to, because you might use this on an ally. So for example, your Wild Tree Barbarian and the party rogue are attacking the melee enemy. At the start of its turn, you teleport it to the other side of you, so it can't reach the rogue and it can't move to the rogue. Or the ranged attack enemy starts its turn within 30 feet of you, so you teleport it beside you and now can't move away and it has disadvantage. This is just a really nice feature now for battlefield control. So at level 3 we're getting some party defense features, and at level 6 we're getting some battlefield control features. Then level 10, Battering Roots. Tendrils of the World Tree extend from your melee weapons. During your turn, while you wield a melee weapon with a heavy or versatile property, your reach with that weapon increases by 10 feet. When you hit with this weapon, you can activate the Push or Topple property in addition to any other mastery property that you are using with that weapon. So your 5-foot reach weapon now has a reach of 15 feet, or your 10-foot reach weapon now has a reach of 20 feet. That's an offensive boost because it means there will be times when you can attack that you wouldn't have been able to attack without that reach. You can also apply a second mastery to every hit with that weapon, so we have yet more control. This is really solid. With Brutal Strike, you can actually push, topple, and slow the same enemy with a single hit. Then the capstone, level 14, and travel along the tree. So in Playtest 7, this was a once per day out of combat utility feature. Now it says you can briefly travel along the World Tree. When you activate your rage, and as a bonus action while it's active, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. And notice there's no limit on the uses here, as long as you're raging. In addition, when you teleport using this feature, you can bring up to 6 willing creatures who are within 10 feet of yourself, and the range you can teleport increases to 500 feet. Each creature teleports to an unoccupied space of your choice within 10 feet of your destination space. you can teleport other creatures with you only once per rage. So basically, unlimited bonus action teleports while you're raging, with twice the range of Phase Step or Misty Step, as well as a feature similar to the Scatter spell once per rage, except unlike that good 6th level spell, it is a bonus action and you can do it at least 5 times per long rest. If you use another rage, you could do this multiple times even in one combat. What an improvement. This might actually be worth taking your Barbarian to 14th level for. Now here's the thing. There's going to be 3 more Barbarian subclasses in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and none of their 14th level features compare to this. I would like to see them get just as juicy stuff at this level. So yeah, this might end up being my favorite Barbarian subclass. I guess I'll hold off until I see the final versions in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Now let's talk about the big topic. Brutal Critical, which if you watch this channel, you know I've never been a fan of, has been replaced with Brutal Strike. This occurs at level 9, and then the feature scales at levels 13 and 17. So let's read Brutal Strike. If you use Reckless Attack, you can forego advantage on the next attack roll you make on your turn with a strength-based attack. If that attack hits, the target takes an extra 1d10 damage of the same type dealt by the weapon or unarmed strike, and you can cause one Brutal Strike effect of your choice. You have the following options. Forceful Blow. The target is pushed 15 feet straight away from you. You can then move up to half your speed straight towards the target without provoking opportunity attacks. And Hamstring Blow. The target speed is reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn. So I'm going to start by saying this. This sounds a lot more interesting than do some extra damage when you score a critical hit. So I'm on board conceptually right away. But maybe you have an opinion on whether this is more powerful than Brutal Critical or not. And for me, I think it depends on the answer to a couple questions that I've been hearing about this feature that I don't think I have clear answers to. So I want to perform a little bit of an informal poll here, but I need your participation. So you can see the feature up on the screen and you've just heard it read out to you. So let me ask you a question. If I am attacking a prone creature next to my character and the attack is a Brutal Strike, does the attack roll benefit from advantage? Now what I want you to do is to pause the video and leave your answer in the comments. Don't think about it too much, just your first impression. And no going back and editing your comment later. I just want to find out your gut instincts when you first heard this feature, because I am curious how many of you will answer each way, because I know when I first read the feature, I thought I knew the answer, and I'm curious how many people will have the same answer mine was. So when it says you can forego advantage on the attack, does it mean you forego advantage full stop? Or does it mean you forego the advantage granted by Reckless Attack specifically, but other sources of advantage would not be forgoed? And I don't think that is made clear at all. If I read that part of the sentence in isolation, so quote, you can forego advantage on the next attack roll you make on your turn, just based on those words, I would say it definitely means you forego advantage, period. However, if you read the whole sentence, if you use Reckless Attack, you can forego advantage. That could imply the advantage being referred to is the advantage from Reckless Attack specifically. I've been thinking about and wrestling with this because I don't think the designer's intent here is clear. They may very well mean the advantage on Reckless Attack is what you're giving up, or they may very well mean you can't have advantage on a Brutal Strike at all. And this makes a huge difference if you are determining how good this feature is, because advantage is pretty easy to come by in the playtest. And if you keep advantage from another source, then that D10 is just extra damage once on that turn, potentially every single turn you take. That is going to be way more damage than Brutal Critical would ever give you. I mean, think about it this way. If you do score a critical hit, you're getting 2d10 here. Well, Brutal Critical would give you 1d12 with the old Brutal Critical feature. That's just on crits. And here we would also be getting d10s on non-criticals, which are far more common. The only downside is it would only be on one particular attack on your turn, and you would need advantage from another source. But you aren't scoring multiple criticals on your turn very often, and often none at all. So I think if you can benefit from other sources of advantage, this is a fair bit more powerful than brutal critical. And you know, if you added one more word to this sentence, I think it would be clear. Like if they put any right here. Okay, now I would know this is all sources of advantage. Or if they put the or its right there, I would know it's the advantage from reckless attack that we're giving up, but just the advantage from reckless attack. And I started thinking, what if I thought about like this sentence structure applied to a different context? So if I said, if you have a cup of coffee, you can forego caffeine on the next sip you take. Okay, now let's say I added a caffeine additive to my coffee. Would I get the caffeine from that? I don't think so. Like, it implies the sip of coffee would have no caffeine. I think about coffee a lot. Let's try another one. Next time you paint your bedroom, you can forego color to save 20%. Now, if I read that, I'm not thinking my bedroom just lost all its color from other sources, just from the paint. So it can go either way depending on the context of that sentence structure. So that exercise wasn't really helpful other than to tell us there's no clear answer. So in the end, I'm not sure. I'll say that I think it's just foregoing advantage from reckless attack because the designers, wouldn't they have to imagine that we would assume that? But I could very easily be wrong. I have to say, it never even occurred to me when I first read this, you might be foregoing advantage from any source, but that was pointed out to me by someone else. So I will be checking the comments to see how many of you had the same initial assumption I did. And that is just the first question I have about Brutal Strike. Here is question number 2. So let's say you don't have another source of advantage. So we don't need an answer to the first question. So on our first turn, we attack an enemy twice, we use reckless attack, and we use Brutal Strike. So which attack is the Brutal Strike? Is it the first attack or is it the second attack? Same thing. Pause the video, answer below what your first impression is. Don't think about it too hard, just the way it hits your gut, and don't edit it later. Because again, when I read this feature, it never occurred to me that it would be anything but the first attack. You declare reckless attack at the start of your turn before attacking, so your next attack is the first attack. But that is not how reckless attack is written. According to reckless attack, when you make your first attack roll on your turn, you decide whether to attack recklessly, so your, quote, next attack, unquote, would be your second attack. Now here I'm a little more confident that the intention is that it would be your first attack, but if you dissect the language without guessing what the intent is, that steers me towards it applying to the second attack. So those are the two questions I have. Are you foregoing advantage period, or just from reckless? And is the Brutal Strike the first attack on your turn, or the second? So hopefully we have an informal poll for both in the comments, because I am really not certain on either. And that makes the power level of this feature kind of impossible for me to gauge. I think if you can get advantage anyways, it's pretty powerful. And especially if it's your second attack. So you could do your first attack with Reckless and Topple Mastery, and then the second attack with Brutal Strike with advantage from the prone condition. That's a really nasty combo before we even consider the additional effects from Brutal Strike. But if you forego advantage full stop, the D10 barely makes up for giving up advantage. In fact, depending on the damage of your attack, it might not make up for advantage. So it's really not a damage boost at all. So it just becomes the additional effects, which are fine, but pretty common stuff. Force movement and slowed movement, hardly rare stuff. I do think it's worth mentioning, though, that the force movement here doesn't have a size restriction, nor does it have a saving throw. And that is quite unique. I mean, even Repelling Blast was given a size restriction in the playtest. What I can say, though, that this is definitely more appealing to me than Brutal Critical either way. Okay, so let's look at scaling and if they've made the base Barbarian any more appealing to continue straight classed into double-digit levels. So at level 13, you get 2 additional options for your Brutal Strike, so you're still applying 1 effect, but you have 4 choices instead of 2. So we have Staggering Blow. The target has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes, and it can't make opportunity attacks until the end of your next turn. And Sundering Blow. Your blow leaves an opening in the creature's defense for an ally until the start of your next turn. The next attack roll made by another creature against the target gains a bonus to that roll equal to your rage's damage. So Sundering Blow to me just doesn't seem all that great. At level 13, this would mean the next attack roll against the creature would have a +3 to hit. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's not that big a deal. Like, maybe if for some other reason the next attack was going to be something really important or really impactful, like maybe the next attack is going to be a Chromatic Orb upcast to 7th level or something, well then the +3 would be more meaningful. But in most cases, it's going to be an attack. That's probably going to be a hit anyways, but now it'll be a little bit more likely to hit, and I don't know, Staggering Blow though. That's a spicy meatball. Ideally, that saving throw isn't against, like, topple to fall prone or anything like that, but to make a save versus hold monster or something really big. Then it's very nice and a great teamwork feature. Then the 17th level scaling is just obviously good. When you hit with the Brutal Strike, you roll 2 dice of extra damage and pick 2 effects. Sounds good. So overall, I like the feature, but those damn 2 questions need definitive answers in the text if this feature makes the player's handbook. Now, is the addition of Brutal Strike, as well as the scaling of the feature at higher levels, the tasty 14th level features like the Path of the World tree has, enough to play Barbarian straight classed into high levels? Maybe. I mean, it's certainly more tempting than it was before, so that's a good step. Let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.